G'day guys, welcome to the Composite shop. My name's Ross. I'm a fiberglass kayak manufacturer from the east coast of Australia, and I thought I'd start a channel and basically dispel some of the myths, the techniques, and some of the pitfalls involved in composite fiberglass manufacture. Now, I have more recently been building a 40-foot catamaran, and I'd like you to check out that other channel, Life on the Hulls. That's my composite fiberglass catamaran channel, and this channel is going to be solely focused on smaller products such as kayaks, on repairs that you can do on your bathtub, your showers, spa baths, swimming pools, all those things that you can do at home just by knowing a little bit about the chemistry, about the technique, and obviously very importantly on how and when it's appropriate for you to do it, how and when it's more appropriate for somebody who's a professional to do it. So I hope you enjoy the channel. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe, because this is information that you won't get freely available out there in the market. A lot of us composite guys like to keep this information to ourselves. I've decided I'm getting a bit long in the tooth. I'm going to share it out. I hope you pick up something out of the channel. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you throughout the series on the Composite shop. So our first product we're going to concentrate on in this series is a product called a Mega High Performance Surf Kayak. Now, these are a carbon or a carbon reinforced fiberglass high performance surf kayak. High performance meaning it fits under the 3 meter range in the surf kayak class. These are originally designed by Malcolm Piercy of the UK, and we've had Malcolm's approval to be able to do this series and talk about the laminate schedules and the construction methods used to make a surf kayak such as what you see here in the videos. Our relationship with Malcolm Piercy is a long-standing relationship. It started back at the end of 2003 when I became an exclusive Australian dealer for his product. What occurred after that was an incredible relationship where Malcolm was able to mentor me right through, and in fact I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for Malcolm. So we then went on to manufacture both rotational moulded versions and composite manufacturing versions. So it's been a great relationship. It has taught me a hell of a lot and got me really into a field that I love and I'm very passionate about. So with the Mega Surf Kayaks, we offer custom colour ranges, we offer custom laminate schedules. Now, as I go through the series, I'm going to try to expand on things like vacuum bagging and vacuum infusion processes. For the moment, this particular one that's on order is a hand laminated version. That's a great place to start for you guys, for anyone that hasn't seen them made before, or anyone that's interested in making any sort of part from a mould. Then this is a great series for you to watch, because I'm going to be breaking these kayaks down into their individual components and then assembling them and concentrating on the detailing and the finishing of a product to bring it to market. So the first part of making one of these surf kayaks, and it's pretty much relative to all kayaks and all fiberglass fabrication, is good preparation. So I've got the mould out here. Now, this is quite an old mould. I made this one in pretty much a hurry because I had some really rush orders to get out. It's nice and stiff, but the one thing I didn't do on this mould is I didn't put a flange on it, and I've regretted it ever since. So every single mould I make now, I actually make sure there's at least a 3-inch flange on it, and that allows for vacuum infusion and good vacuum bagging technique into the long run. I can certainly still vacuum bag with this mould, but right now I can't vacuum infuse this particular product because I don't have the flange to allow for the vacuum seal and the gum tape and all the excess bagging equipment that you need to make on it. But the first thing we do here is give this a good clean. Now, this surface is, I always wrap these moulds in sheets and blankets and things so that A, they don't get scratched, and B, it keeps the majority of the dust and grime that you get in a composite shop like we have here off the mould. So the first process of cleaning it is I clean it with a product we call Methylated Spirits, and in Australia that is a pretty high alcohol content product. It's not corrosive at all, so it's not like acetone or thinners where it's going to actually eat into the surface, but it's tremendous for cleaning off any grime, plasticine, anything you might have used on the product before. Now, I like to clean the moulds before I put them away. That's part of my regime of mould preparation and maintenance. Very important to have that in your head when you finish a mould. If you know you're going to produce another one, always clean it straight away. Then it's ready to go in production months, years, decades later, should the product still be wanted. Now this product here, I've been making this one since 2007, so now 12 years on, still popular because it actually has a very good size for guys around my size, 100, 110 kilo mark. 6'3", I'm a pretty big unit, and I've got big legs, so this particular boat suits that down to the ground. So with every single product, they all have their own intricate features, whether it be a bathtub, a spa bath, a kayak, a moulding for a car, a spoiler or anything. But this particular surf kayak, the hull mould I have in front of me, requires that it has fin boxes. Now these slotted fin boxes are designed for a mal type fin, where it has one small base plate and then a pin that holds it in place, and therefore it's adjustable along the length of this track. The typical process for installing these fin boxes requires that you laminate the hull, and then you cut a slot, and then you glass the box onto the actual inside of the hull, and therefore leaving the slot open to the sea, and hopefully it's glassed in adequately enough, or it's epoxied in place in the surfboard, and invariably they will come out, and I've seen it so many times on surfboards where the fin box is broken off because you've got a large protrusion here, or a fin that has a lot of levering motion. Mega kayaks have a very different process than the way we install these. We actually put this on the mould first, and the surface of the mould is a highly polished surface with wax release on it, so that it'll enable it to lift. Now we like to install these actually physically on the mould, and then we gel coat over the top of it, therefore making the fin box monocoque and actually part of the structure of the hull. It takes a bit of work to do that. You can't just sort of stick that on there. I'll show you how we go through that process. This fin box has to sit flush on the mould surface. The key to that is to make sure firstly that it is clean. So once again, everything that is manufactured in a factory will have some sort of a plastic or oily coating on it, and in this case it's an injection molded process. So any plastic has excess oils and things in it that you really don't want contaminating your job. So I spend a lot of time just making sure that my products are clean and free of any excess oil, to make sure that firstly I'm going to get a good adhesion to the product, and secondly I'm not going to contaminate and change the chemical structure of my composite by having a foreign body entering that process. So to install a tape onto the bottom of the fin box, you simply lay it out sticky side up. Get your product. This could be a leash mount, a fin box, a drain plug, anything that you might want to actually install onto the mould, and simply sit it down in place like so. And then I use a Stanley blade, and then I'm able to just trim the excess neatly, no fuss, like so, straight along the line of the product, so that it makes a beautiful, neat finish. And that's the first part of the process done. So now we've got that installed on there. Now I've got a barrier between the fin box and the mould itself. I then need to elevate it above the surface of the mould. We want it around about 1 millimetre or 2 up. So we use a simple double-sided technique, double-sided tape technique. Lay your double-sided tape out. This will work, as I said, on anything you want to stick on a mould. And I'll put that in place like so. Dead along the line of it. Alright, and you'll see that I have a small excess on the end here. You can simply cut that off just by using your Stanley blade. And try to get it as neat as possible. Cut all the little corners off. Alright, so now that's stuck on there. That means that'll just peel off with the packing tape. Now you will notice that I have a tiny little edge there, right along here. Now I'm going to trim that off because I don't want any excess here, because I want to make sure I can get my plasticine radius absolutely flush with the side of this fin box. So once again, it's not that hard to do. You see that'll just peel off like so. could be bolted mounts for screws into fiberglass, because screwing into actual fiberglass is just a no-no. You should always screw into a mount or a base plate or something. It could even be a piece of aluminium you want to actually glass to the surface and have a flush surface. So that's it. So we'll do 3 of those. The first thing we need to do is apply a mould release to the surface of the mould. Now, I'm not going to do the entire mould. I'm only going to do where these fin boxes are going to sit, and they are about here. Now, normally, when I'm setting up a new model, we will set up a jig for these to mount, and we'll measure them every single time to make sure they're in the right position. The key to thruster setups is that they provide drive to the board or the boat or whatever it is, particularly in the surf. Now, a fin has to be positioned in the correct position. On a surfboard, typically these will be quite aft. On a surf kayak, because the weight's more central and the backside of the paddler is right here, we will typically position the center fin just behind the seated position or the balance point of the boat. And then the side thrusters that actually provide the turning or the drive to bottom turn and make moves on the wave will be positioned just adjacent to the hips. So imagine my bum's here. Don't imagine my bum, but imagine someone's bum is sitting here, and then my hip is around about here. And very importantly, as I lift my knee, my hip will engage that fin into the surface of the wave and provide a drive back up the face of the wave. The center fin is more for tracking. The side fins are more for lift. And as the water passes down through this part of the boat, that lift is actually gained by the cant or the shaping and the positioning of the fin, and that does vary. So you'll see invariably, you'll see a mal will have a single fin, which is a long board, slow, long turns. A short board will have a thruster setup where the back of the board is always lifting and therefore not bogging down in the wave and providing drive and allowing that planing motion that we're aiming for here. These aren't displacement hulls like a sea kayak or a boat. They're a planing hull. They're designed to get up and move, and stability is gained from the planing motion. In fact, they're more stable when they're moving fast than they are when they're sitting still. So the mould release, I always wear a glove. I don't like the feeling of my hands. And ultimately, I'll make sure that I'm always protected from any chemicals that I'm introducing into my skin, because your body will absorb this stuff. And long-term cumulative effects, I've seen guys that simply can't work with certain products like epoxies and things purely because they've just done it with bare hands all their lives. And you've got to be very, very careful. I'm not telling you how to suck eggs, because everybody's safe in the workplace these days. I just don't really need people telling me to be safe when I've been working with the stuff all my life. But unlike my dad and all the guys that used to work with no masks, no gloves, I wear gloves because of simply I know that that absorption into the bloodstream cannot be good for you for any foreign product. Okay, so about 10 minutes ago I applied a mould release. This is a TR product, fantastic mould release. It's worth noting that when you put on mould release, you should actually let it sit for around about 10 to 15 minutes to allow it to powderise. If you start to wipe it straight off, you're not going to get the full benefit of it. You want to let that gas off and the vapor gas off it, and then let it sit until it goes chalky, and then it's easier to remove and it actually gives you a better result. So now that it's on, you just use a simple, like a t-shirt or a cotton type of polishing cloth, and remove any trace of the mould release. Now remember, I'm only doing a small section like this. I'm not actually doing the whole hull. I'm only embedding these fin boxes, and these are sort of things I can do at the end of the day when I haven't got a lot more I can do and I want to set up and get a big job done. What I'll do is I'll do all these small jobs, and then I can sit this for 12 months. If invariably I'll get 3 or 4 of these holes done at a time, and then someone orders this particular model, I'm already an hour into it. Okay, so I've finished wiping off the mould release, and now I'm at the point where I can actually glue this fin box into place. Now, so I've removed the red adhesive covering off the double-sided tape, and in any other case I'll measure 10 times and cut once, but in this case I know exactly where this particular fin box fits. So I'm able to then simply stick her in place, and now it's ready to plasticine around and get a radius going, and then I'm able to simply fiberglass over the top of that, and I'll do the same over here, and
I know exactly where this one goes.
So now that I've put the plasticine around the fin boxes there, I've actually got a small screwdriver that I carefully ground the end into a radius. I'm not sure if you can see it there. It's a bit hard to see, but it's a little rounded point. And you can use anything with a rounded point to get a good radius, but that's the chosen radius. I can laminate pretty effectively that particular shape without getting any little air bubbles or anything in it. And obviously you don't want air bubbles because then the gel coat cracks and water can ingress into the substrate that you're laminating with. But I use this to start the shaping process of that radius. It takes around an hour to get these parts fitted onto the hull, but the result is I don't have to route the external hull. I don't have to glass the fin boxes on later on. It's all done at the time of laminating, making for a much stronger product. Very, very sound way to build them. And in all the years, and I've made hundreds of these things, I've never had a fin box delaminate. I have seen it in so many surfboards and other products where they're physically glassed on later on. This is just such a sound way of producing a product. All right, so I've got the small radius tool, and the key is with this is not to pick up and gather the plasticine as you work with it. So what I'll do is I'll push it all down with my finger and start the sort of the embedding process, and then I can get the radius tool and just lightly run it along. Now I find occasionally it'll catch, because the plasticine will catch and gather like a snowball as you keep pulling along. You could possibly drag it off the mould, but I find that as I do that, I'm able to get a really defined shape that is going to come off pretty easily. And I'll just try to give you a close-up of that. So you can see it here. I've already sort of gotten the shape I'm after, and then if you just then scribe it, and you don't want to damage the mould too much, but you can pretty much pick up the excess and roll it away, and then that can be used later on. So once again, using your finger to sort of massage it into place. Sorry about it jumping around. And then using the radius tool to push down and out. I'm getting rid of all of the excess by really making sure it's locked down onto the mould. Okay, and then the final run along means that I've got a pretty good start to the finished product. So I'll say this a million times through the course of this series, the devil's in the detail. The more work you'll do in the prep phase, the better your result's going to be. It's the same with anything. I mean, you can't produce a nice quality product without doing the correct prep work required. And I see so many people sort of expect a result without putting in the hard work first, and I'm a bit the other way. I'd rather do the hard work at the beginning, and it actually makes it easier in the long run. There's no real shortcuts in handmade product. It needs to be done pretty carefully. So these fin boxes are now complete. You can see a small radius here all the way round, and the final stage to getting this before I put another coat of release wax on it and then gel coat the mould is I use the methylated spirits, or metho, us Aussies like to call it. So the methylated spirits is great for cleaning up the plasticine. It strips it off the mould, but once again it's relatively harmless on the surface of the mould and on the substrate. So just a simple wipe all the way around will clean up any residue, because you don't want that on the rest of the mould. I want a nice smooth gel coat flow all the way across it, and I don't want any areas I need to buff out later on the gel coat. So the other thing too is important to actually clean the actual fin box again, because I've had pretty greasy fingers with the plasticine. I want to make sure that that's pretty much ready to accept gel coat with the release wax all over it. And we don't want release wax on the actual fin box because we want the gel coat to stick to it and subsequently the glass. So a really light clean all the way around yields a perfect result. And that preparation, it probably took me an hour to get that right, but that's going to save me probably 2 or 3 hours of retrospective work when the hull's finished, like we would make a wave ski or a surfboard, where we've got to actually route out the fin box and then embed that fin box into foam or glass it to the end product. So that way all the work's done at the beginning, and less chance of them delaminating, less chance of them removing and falling out of the actual surf kayak in the long run. Well, as you can see in the background here, guys, I've started the gel coating process, and that's coming up in the future episodes, gel coating and laminating of this hull and preparing it for its end product. And then I'm going to start working on some of the smaller components, and what we'd like to do is basically expand on how we're laminating them, what are some of the techniques and some of the tips that I can give you for making smaller parts, and then we're going to install them, finish them, and ultimately bring this product to market. So lots coming up. So that was a biggie, guys. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Now, over the period of the next couple of years, I'm going to basically be doing anything that comes into the shop here. We're going to film, we're going to process, we're going to break it down and tear it apart and unpack it for you to understand, so that you get some value out of it. Please don't hesitate to subscribe, and don't forget to like it, and please continue to watch our channel, and I'll see you next time on the Composite Shop.